Hello everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this month's episode of Pegasus. I am Dr. Brittany Moore Henderson, Community Outreach Veterinarian here at Mississippi State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. As we began to approach the holiday season, we began to think about family gatherings, fun, and of course, food, which we are all excited about, including our four-legged companions. But this time of year poses some increased risks for our four-legged companions, which can be very detrimental to their health. So joining me this month to talk more about some of the risks that are associated with the holiday season and some preventive strategies that we can use is Dr. Mark Seitz, Assistant Clinical Professor of Emergency Medicine here at the College of Veterinary Medicine. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Seitz.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Seitz, why do the holiday present some potential risks for our four-legged companions?
Well, to sum it up, I'd say the number one reason is we greatly deviate from the routines that we as pet owners and our pets are used to keeping on a day-to-day basis. If you think about it, we have a lot of social gatherings, there's a lot of people coming in and out of the house. As you mentioned, there's extravagant foods at all these social gatherings, and there's even things like decorations, candles, potpourri, and all these things are possible hazards to our pets, especially if our guard is down and we're not paying attention. Fortunately, as we're going to discuss, a lot of these can be easily prevented, but we need to have a little bit of awareness and a little bit mindfulness at what can be a possible danger to our pets.
Okay, so what do you feel is the most common reason pets need veterinary care over the holidays?
It sounds surprising, but I'd say the number one reason are problems related to food. And it can come from a lot of different reasons. It can either be excessive quantities of food that we don't think about as harmful, normal amounts of food that just don't agree with our pets, or even certain foods that are toxic. But when we look at all the reasons pets come in, there are three common diseases that we see associated with foods around the holidays. And I want our pet owners out there, our viewers, aware what could possibly happen. The first disease that we see is a problem we just call gastroenteritis. And this is a catch-all term, also referred to as dietary indiscretion, that describes when a food doesn't agree with a pet. And it usually causes mild signs such as a lack of appetite, vomiting, or diarrhea. Fortunately, it is something that can be easily fixed with outpatient hospital care. Usually our pets don't need to be hospitalized for this. It usually doesn't require extensive diagnostics either, but it still can cause an unplanned trip to the vet, especially at the most inconvenient time. The second and a little bit more severe problem that we see is a problem called pancreatitis, and this usually occurs from consuming an excessive quantity of food or foods that are high in fat or protein. And what this does is it irritates the pancreas because it causes an oversecretion of enzymes that then start digesting the pancreas itself. And this leads to abdominal pain, inflammation of the local area, and it causes our pets to vomit, have diarrhea, and to become really uncomfortable. Although pancreatitis usually has a good outcome, it does require 2 to 3 days in the hospital on average, and sometimes a little bit more extensive diagnostics than the first disease we talked about. The third thing that we see that's perhaps the most severe are foreign bodies or problems related to the ingestion of bones. And I hear it all the time, I get questions all the time. Doc, dogs in the wild eat bones all the time, why can't my pet? And the truth is, our pets can get away with it, but we have to remember that our pets are not wild animals anymore. They're far removed. They're domesticated. They have a much different diet than the wolves that we see out in the wild. And so even though sometimes they get away with eating a bone, every bone is a potential risk to get stuck and cause an obstruction, or to splinter and puncture through the intestines and cause a life-threatening infection of their abdomen. Both of these things are usually emergencies that require surgery. They're costly, they're more dangerous, and again, to me, it's just not worth the risk. There are much safer things that we can offer our pets than bones. So my best advice, just avoid them.
I totally agree, Dr. Seitz. So what recommendations can you give our viewers who may want to give their four-legged companions a treat?
So I'll be the first to admit, I give my pets treats around the holidays as well, but we want to be smart about what we offer. So given what we just talked about, I usually give my pet owners 2 recommendations. The first is they can find whatever dry food they feed them, go to the pet store and buy a canned variety of that dry food. Because it's from a similar manufacturer and a similar makeup, it's usually going to agree with them and not upset their tummy. And if a dog or a cat isn't used to getting canned food, they will love it and think it's the best stuff in the world. And we do this for my pet around the holidays. The second thing, and I admit I do this for my pet as well, is it is okay to give them certain human foods. We just want to be smart about it. We want to do things that are lean, low in fat, and that are going to agree with the tummy. So a great example, I give my dog Sedona a little Thanksgiving meal. I usually replace it with about half the quantity of her dinner. And I usually give her a few pieces of lean turkey meat, the white meat. I usually give her a couple green beans and then also some sweet potatoes. It's healthy for them. It's got good vitamins and minerals. It's usually not going to upset them. It's a little bit more risky than a canned food, but it's enough to express that love through food, which we're not supposed to do every day, but around the holidays, it's okay.
Okay. So what about this thing called xylitol in foods?
Yep, so I'm glad you reminded me. I almost forgot to list the foods that we shouldn't feed our pets. And including xylitol, the other things we want to avoid are things like onions, garlic, grapes, raisins, macadamia nuts, avocados, anything with caffeine, anything with chocolate, and then as you help me to remember, xylitol. Xylitol is a sneaky one I want our viewers aware of because it just became popular within the past 15 to 20 years. And what it is an artificial sweetener that is non-toxic to humans. It tastes great. And as a result, it's gotten popular and it's put in a lot of food items. People are probably most familiar with it being in gum, but it's also found in peanut butters. It's found in diet foods and diabetic foods. And you can also buy it as a bulk powder to cook with. And I know a lot of people who are on special diets that use it to try to cut down carbs or save sugar. The reason why I want owners aware of it is even though it's safe for humans, it's one of those weird species differences and that it's incredibly toxic to dogs, actually life-threatening. What it does is it tricks the dog pancreas to release insulin. And when that happens, the insulin gobbles up all the blood sugar and it creates a life-threatening condition called hypoglycemia. And this can cause seizures to even death in our pets. And if they get a high enough dose, it can actually cause liver failure as well. So you just want to make certain you read labels, make certain this isn't in any ingredients that you're not cooking with it. And if it is, make certain nobody gives those foods to their pets.
Okay, Dr. Seitz. So are there any final dangers our owners should be aware of this holiday season?
The only other food item I want people aware of is bread dough that has yeast in it. This is always a surprising one for most people, but a lot of times our inner culinary expert comes out and we want to bake or make a special bread. And we leave it out on the counter. We leave yeast-filled bread dough on the counter to rise. And this is fine. But if you have, say, a large breed dog like a Labrador who likes to counter surf, Sedona again is a good example, my lab, they can ingest bread dough and it can actually be toxic to them. What happens is when they eat it, the stomach acts as an oven and it triggers that yeast to start working, and that yeast gobbles up the bread dough and it creates alcohol and carbon dioxide. Basically, the alcohol literally absorbs into their bloodstream and will make them drunk and really sick. And the carbon dioxide will fill their stomach and create bloat, which is really, really dangerous and painful. So again, just make certain if you leave bread dough out, it's in an area where the pets can't get into it. And if they do ingest it, contact your vet immediately.
Okay, so where can our viewers find more helpful tips for the holidays?
So they can view more helpful tips at the AVM website that we are going to list on the screen, www.avma.org. And if they go and search holiday pet safety, there'll be a slew of more information for them to check out.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me today, Dr. Seitz, and giving us those important tips for the holidays.
Anytime, thanks for having me.
Well, this concludes this month's episode of Pegasus. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions about today's show, please email me at brittany.henderson@msstate.edu. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time here on Pegasus.